Call to order the October 20th, 2025 public hearing of the City of Prescott Preservation Commission. Members present: James McCarver, Rob Johnson, Mike King, Diane Travis, the vice chair, and I'm Rick Sprain, the chair. Other member of staff: Alex Brimlett, Jacob Lund, Chelsea Walton, Mayor Good, and Councilman Ted Gambogi. This is an open public hearing that is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, local cable and/or radio stations that may be broadcasted. The total number of commissioners present is 5, and it will require a majority vote of those present to pass a motion. All parties wishing to be heard will be expected to state their name for the record, speak loudly and close to the microphone. Make sure all your telephones are turned off. And we'll turn this over to Alex.
I think we have the meeting minutes for the first item.
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion for approve the minutes for the July 11th meeting and the July 22nd and the September 12th?
Mr. Chair, Diane Travis, I move to approve the meeting minutes from both July meetings and September, I believe it was.
Have a second?
I second that.
All approve? Say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Now we'll turn it over.
Wonderful. I'll wait for that presentation to get queued up. Perfect. Well, thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commission members. My name is Alex Bramlett. I'm the Planning Manager for Community Development. By now, I've met most of you, but I've never presented in front of you, so thanks for having me. We're here this morning to review the Prescott Plaza Hotel submittal under record number HP 25-006. Taking it high level for a minute, this property is located within downtown Prescott, across the street from the Courthouse Plaza within Whiskey Row. The current addresses are 136, 138, and 140 South Montezuma Street. The property is located in the purple area, which is the downtown business zoning district. A zoning district enforces many things, but some of the key elements are use and setbacks. So in the downtown business zoning district, hotel is a use that's allowed by right, and there are no setback requirements from planning. Beyond the baseline zoning, there are historic district overlays. So on the left-hand side, you can see the National District overlay. The property is located in the orange area, which is designated as the Courthouse Plaza National Historic District. National districts are used as a tool to identify a community's historic resources. On the right-hand side is another overlay indicated in blue, which is also known as the Courthouse Plaza, but this is a local historic district. The designation of local historic district further protects and enhances specific resources through the process of design review. Local districts are how we implement the process of design review, and we do that through the Historic Preservation Master Plan, which was adopted in January of 1998. The plan is a guide for the city, the PPC, and the public to understand and apply preservation principles. Shortly following the adoption of the plan, an ordinance was adopted for the Courthouse Plaza local district. Adoption of the ordinance established authority for the Courthouse Plaza district to fall under PPC's jurisdiction, and the ordinance is utilized for review and approval of all projects. So just a project overview here. I think we're all familiar, but on the right-hand side is an image of the existing building. It is not listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Not considered a contributing resource within the district, and the current business names are Mountain Spirit Gallery, Harley Davidson, and Wild at Heart. On the bottom, you can see renderings for the proposal. So it's going to be a 47-room hotel. And they're going to have an open air terrace with a retractable roof enclosure on the 4th floor to host a wine patio overlooking the courthouse plaza. There will be regular and Juliet balconies on the front and the alley side of the proposed structure with wrought iron railings. The rear of the hotel, which is the second proposed rendering you see, is facing the alley, and they will feature a hotel mercantile shop, as well as a secondary entrance and an elevator for guests. So the city outsourced the application review to a senior architectural historian with Broadbent and Associates. The city also asked the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, to do a voluntary review, which was received and forwarded to you all last Friday. Their review was focused solely on the Secretary of Interior Standards, Section 9, Standard 9, as Standard 3 and Standard 10 complied completely in their entirety. This presentation is based on the findings from Broadbent and the voluntary review from SHPO. High-level overview from just the process. We're starting here with the Prescott Preservation Commission for review and approval, which is going to be based on the Courthouse Plaza Local Historic District guidelines and the ordinance. Moving forward, they'll need to have a special use permit, a water service agreement application, and then finally, they'll need to apply for construction permits, which will encompass structural engineering, building and zoning codes, right-of-way encroachments, equipment, all of those elements. So we'll just dive into the criteria, and the first one that we look at is the siding of the building. All setbacks shall be 0 for 50% of the first floor facade and 100% of the second and third floor facade, including the roof line. So they, as the 4th story is not specifically addressed in the guidelines, Broadbent and Associates leaned on an elevation of the overrun using the design from the Secretary of Interior Standards for rehabilitation. Standard 9 and 10 provide guidance on new work, including addition, exterior alterations, and new construction. As the proposed project is considered new construction, the standards for rehabilitation apply. Broadbent found that the proposed project meets Standard 9 in that it will be differentiated from and compatible with the adjacent historic buildings, specifically existing historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion. The 4th floor is stepped back an adequate distance so as to be minimally visible and give appearance of a 3-story building from the public right-of-way. Broadbent found that the proposed project will not negatively impact the integrity of the district and its ability to convey its historic significance. The proposed project does not meet certain aspects of Standard 9 and all of Standard 10. Broadbent also found that the proposed project meets specific guidelines for rooftop additions in the standards for rehabilitation, which states that a rooftop addition on a multi-story building should be set back at least 1 full bay from the primary elevations, being conspicuous when viewed from surrounding streets and be limited to 1 story. Although the setback is technically not 1 full bay, it is found to be sufficiently set back as to not be visually intrusive. Further, as this building is new construction within an established historic district, Broadbent also consulted the National Park Service guidelines for new construction within the boundaries of a historic preservation district. Most notably, Broadbent found that the proposed project respects the historic setback and streetscape, does not obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features of the district, and the massing scale size is proposed to be compatible with the district. Moving on to SHPO's analysis, which again is voluntary, is not required for this project since it's in a local district and they're only looking at the Secretary of Interior standards. But they felt that the hotel facade is sited appropriately in the same plane as other building entrances along South Montezuma. The new building does not obscure character-defining features of its neighbors. In relation to extant buildings being protected, SHPO found the rhythm of listed buildings along Risky Row is interrupted by the height. However, SHPO acknowledged the previous proposal was 5 stories and they now propose 4, which the applicant has reduced. And SHPO recommends when infill buildings are taller than their neighbors, the upper stories are set back to minimize their visibility. Given the history of the project and the understanding that the city previously recommended the applicant bring the patio roof in front of the buildings, SHPO suggested materials be revisited so they're less conspicuous, or alternatively, use a retractable awning, which the applicant has proposed. Moving on, the siting of the building. Here's a site plan for the whole property. And on the right-hand side is the portion that's facing South Montezuma Street. You can see they're right up to the property line on the front side and the rear pretty close, which is in compliance with the zoning. On the north and south side of the property, you can see it step back a little bit, and that is to comply with fire codes. Here's a design guideline or a diagram of the property as well for the massing criteria, which does comply. The height maximum is 48 feet. On the left-hand side, that's now facing South Montezuma. There's the balconies and the patio on the north or on the upper story. So on the very closest portion to South Montezuma Street is 36 feet 6 inches. It's then stepped back that 15 feet 6 inches, and then it hits a 43 feet 6 inch height. And the maximum height of the overall structure is at the point of the elevator overrun. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is towards the alley, and the maximum height at that point is 46 feet and 5 inches. So the fenestration or doors and windows section is certainly the most detailed portion of the criteria, with specific measurements relating to storefront windows, non-storefront windows, and the relationship of walls to openings. Broadbent did various measurements to determine the project did meet all the criteria. In summary, a wide variety of combinations is possible under the fenestrations and relations of walls to windows, and the applicant has met all the criteria. Generally speaking, too, the goal of the guidelines is to make the windows vertical in orientation, which they have done, and to have the maximum separation be of 10 feet. The design of the building criteria for roofs specifically. So they want to have, a flat roof, and that's what they do, a slight pitch to just obviously for drainage purposes. There is a parapet on the 3rd floor, and then most of their equipment, the roof material, everything like that is going to be enclosed within the elevator overrun. So none of that will be visible. The elevator overrun will also be set back from the Montezuma Street side about 53 feet. And the color and roof material should be earth tone and match the color, so they meet all of those criteria. Building material criteria, moving on, wall and fenestration materials. I'm gonna run through them. So we have the front street level with a natural stone wainscoting, and I'll pause for a second too. The applicants provided samples, which I'll pass around later. We're gonna do that later. Above the wainscoting to the top of the building will be a red brick veneer as the primary exterior color. Cornices, lintels, balconies, and cornice will be of natural stone. The alley facade will feature red brick veneer as primary material, along with natural stone for details. The first floor courthouse plaza facing window will feature canvas awnings in a burgundy striped pattern. All the windows are wood frame, Douglas style, and front entry doors will be wood framed with transomed windows. And lastly, the suspended portico above the front entrance will feature a Prescott Plaza hotel signage. And just to note, SHPO noted they were pleased to see the hotel facade has been changed to a brick with modest stone wainscoting, which better fits the color material range from the district. In summary of the overall review criteria, Broadbent and Associates found that the proposed project met all the applicable ordinance requirements under siting, design, material, and other considerations. The applicant is still in the beginning phases of the overall proposed project, and we focus solely on implementation of the ordinance. Just to note too, the hotels are allowed by the right in the downtown business zoning district, and the approval of this design doesn't constitute approval of the construction project. So some recommended motion options for you is to move to approve or deny HP 25-006. The consultant who did the analysis is present. I know the applicant and their representatives are present as well and available for any questions. Thank you.
I have a question regarding the proposal, or if I can, Who wrote-
Well, maybe ask your question and then we
okay.
can figure out. Yeah.
The building itself, if it wasn't for what we are going through, would that building qualify for historic preservation and the National Register.
I'm not sure. I know it's currently not listed.
Correct.
And
But
no
would
one
it-
has nominated it, so it's not been analyzed at this time.
Okay. So they would just need to be, somebody would just need to be put
It
in
would-
for it, basically. Then it would be analyzed and
And it go through a review
approved.
process.
Okay. Anybody have any questions so far? Before we get the public comment?
Michael King, are we going to hear from broadband presentation, or is it just Q&As?
Q&A.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, this is Rob Johnson. So in that SHPO document that you referenced, there's a couple of sections in there that they also agreed within the extant building issue that it was unprecedented in this neighborhood of 1 to 3 story buildings. Okay, that was part of their comments. And in addition to that, while it's differentiated of new construction has been achieved, it has not been effectively balanced in terms of compatibility with the district. I just wanted to bring, those were also their comments in that document.
Thank you.
anybody else?
My name is Michael King. I'm new to the commission, having been served for about 10 years. Then I was off. I'm back on. If you haven't seen me in the last couple meetings, I've been in the audience following this project, so I'm not new to what's going on today. I'll ask a few questions to just set the tone for where I'm going with this. And does the city fully support the work and the conclusions and analysis and conclusion of the broadband and Ms. Mooney?
We are utilizing that for our staff report, yes.
All right. And you fully support the work that Kaylee Nunez did before we brought broadband in,
Yes.
right? Yes, right. One of the things about that was relative to the minutes that we approved today, where Ms. Nunez, when the question was answered or asked about if things are not brought up in the guidelines or in the ordinance, such as balconies and 4-story. They were not brought up in the guidelines. And she said, and I'll ask the attorney, she said that does not prohibit nor approve. It doesn't mean you can't approve things that are not in the ordinances. You have the ability to make a decision outside of what's not in the ordinance, such as balconies and 4-story. Is that true, Mr. Attorney?
That's consistently been the opinion of the legal department as well as staff. So that is true.
Thank you.
Jacob, you want to call our first person, please?
Yes, first speaker will be David Siegel.
And I'll be timing you for 2 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning.
Okay. The City of Prescott's current historic preservation master plan was adopted by council in 1998. It serves as the primary resource for the public, staff, and preservation commissioners when work on historic properties is proposed. It is referenced in the city code and in the city's land development code as the document governing historic properties and districts. One of the legal definitions of code, a city ordinance is a specific law enacted by local government, while a city code is a comprehensive collection of all laws. To council, you just said if it wasn't mentioned, it could be considered. The only thing that is mentioned is a maximum of 3 stories. Therefore, a 4th story, by your own admission, cannot be considered. In the recent letter sent to City Attorney Joseph Young, Their own attorney admits and acknowledges in 4 different locations that they are going to have an open-air patio on the 4th floor. And behind that open-air patio will be hotel rooms. 4 times he acknowledges a 4th floor. That is in contradiction to the Preservation Master Plan, again,
30 seconds.
which is code. Code is law. The bottom line is everything else is a distraction. Balconies, treatment, windows, probably wallpaper and drapes. The fact is that this was codified into code in 1998 with a maximum of 3 stories. Any vote to approve is a vote contrary to law. Thank you.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mel Roop.
And no applause, please. Keep it civil.
Thank you. I'm Mel Roop. How many minutes did you say we have? Oh, I thought it was 3. In the past, it's been 3, so I'll have to try to do some quick editing here. I'm always asked, why has this project gone on for so long? It's pretty obvious to me. I've had extensive experience working for developers and getting their approvals through cities. My process was 1, to be intimate with the city's ordinances, 2, work closely with city staff and the community, and I never had a project go on like this. Mine were approved quick and easy, and I worked on projects many times this size. The July 22 Preservation Commission report states, details must be historically consistent with the district. I'm only going to focus on details. I'm not going to focus on all the other shortcomings of the project. People ask, why wouldn't they just comply? Several reasons. 1, it's cheaper to build a flat wall than one with detail on it. And 2, throughout the process, the applicant has shown a desire to have a modern building, quote unquote. And people have referred to these criteria as guidelines. They are criteria, and there's a big difference. We have to use the right word. The best illustration of this difference I took from the last scene of the Pirates of the
30 seconds.
Caribbean movie, which Captain Sparrow chewed out his crew for not obeying his orders. One of the crew members said, "We thought they were just guidelines." I think that's a good example of the difference between guidelines and criteria, and this does not pass muster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mike Fennick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mick Fennick. I spent 30 years in hospitality management. My last job was up at the Prescott Resort before Steve Brissetti. I was Arizona State 2003 Hotelier of the Year, so I know a little bit about hotels. I then went to work for the city of Prescott in facilities management, and the applicant came to me while I was working for the city to talk about various things of the building, et cetera. I know a little bit about facilities management. I was responsible for bringing the Cardinals here and changing Embry-Riddle into a hotel for that week. Was over the Elks Opera House restoration. I've done a lot for the city. My point is, in speaking with the applicant, this is a great hotel project. Very well thought out. He knows what he's doing. I hope you approve it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Don Beely.
Don Beely, 951 Norris Road. I only have 2 minutes, is that correct? I'm not sure if I can make my point in 2 minutes, but I think you should be aware that there are some ironies here that should not be overlooked. My business partner and I have owned 5 buildings in Montezuma Street, downtown Prescott. 3 of them are right here in this block. 2 across the street, the old American Laundry building and the Mayberry building. And the third one is right here where we stand. This was originally York Motors. It was sold, and then it was presented as being a 5-story building. And people came out of the woodwork saying, you can't have 5-story building. And the city declined it and limited this to being a 3-story building, which today the city would like 5, by the way. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. The irony is, the other thing is the floodplain. If you notice, we have to walk up the steps to get into the first floor of this building because it was in the floodplain. Yet a few years later, across the street is a 4-story hotel that was on city property that you enter at ground level, and it's right next to Granite Creek. Again, this is private property. That's city-owned property. The irony is, up here, we're dealing on a hotel that is privately owned, yet on city-owned property, 1 block away, is approved a 4-story, much uglier hotel, in my opinion. And the question is, where's the fairness? City-owned property versus privately owned property. In my opinion, the old city lot should be a parking lot for downtown Prescott and the merchants rather than a hotel. But
Your time's up.
okay, I think I made it in 2 minutes. There is some irony here, and there needs to be fairness.
Teresa Riverwood.
Hi there, I'm Teresa Riverwood. I don't have any facts to
Pull
present.
the microphone down, please.
That's above my head. I'm Teresa Riverwood. I don't have any facts to present, just my opinion. My family has lived in Prescott for 30 years. I've seen many manifestations around this town and changes. Sure, a hotel like this would be a nice addition to Prescott, just not this location. I have concerns about the parking. I don't know if anyone's addressed that yet, but I would love to know where they plan on parking, as that parking structure on Granite, I don't believe is going to be able to withstand 47 more hotel rooms and all of the employees to also work there. What is going to happen to the street and foot traffic of the courthouse square during construction of this project? What kind of detours will there be? And how will this affect existing businesses that are already there? And I don't know about you, but when I go as a tourist to a town, to their historic district, I would like to walk and shop and see all the beautiful things there are to see, and maybe pick up some mementos to take home, and gifts for friends. I don't want to walk past hotel after hotel. We already have 2 hotels on that row. I would rather see shops and things that I can experience.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Richard Thompson.
Oh, higher. Richard Thompson, Prescott. I'm going to quote the Historic Preservation Master Plan, page 8.9. 1 story, 6 to 24 feet. 2 stories, 28 to 36 feet. 3 stories, 40 to 48 feet. No 4 stories. Page 8.4. Building heights vary from 1 to 3 stories. 8.19. A limit of 3 stories and 48 feet. 8.22. Adhere to historic height ranges for 1, 2, and 3-story buildings. Just on this fact alone, please vote to deny this project. Thank you.
Mary Frederickson.
Mary Frederickson, Prescott. I only have 2 minutes. There is much I could say, but I'll focus on the 3-story as versus 4-story, as you've already heard many people speak of. I counted 8 separate instances of the guidelines referencing 1, 2, and 3 stories, never any reference of the 4th. I know the review of the architectural firm indicated, well, if they don't mention 4, that doesn't mean we can't have 4, but that requires throwing out all those references to 1, 2, and 3 stories. That's both within the guidelines, also referenced within the master plan. So just ignoring all those references to 3 stories as the maximum is quite a leap. And seems to be targeted more just to get the thing done, get the approval done, without consideration of the fact that you're just going to have to ignore all those references to 3 stories as a maximum. So I disagree with that point. I also disagree with the point that the design is compatible with the rest of Whiskey Row's architecture. Nowhere else on that strip are there balconies that overhang the public right-of-way, the sidewalk. It's the only one. There is no building on that row that includes a patio with an overhang and railings that are visible from the street level. There's nothing about it that is compatible to Whiskey Row. That might be a subjective determination, but it's a correct determination, not compatible. Thank you.
Nancy Beets or Dietz? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Nancy Beets. I live downtown on Marina.
Hold the microphone down, please, a little bit.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to shift it a little bit to the alley, which we're talking about the functionality of the hotel, but we're talking about also loading and unloading of guests. And the alley should be recognized for its significance and contribution to our culture and our history. Although the alleys are public, they are not for general passage like a normal street. The Prescott Valley community explicitly defines alleys for not being for general use. The city traffic engineer has the authority to designate and indicate this restriction. So I went personally with a tape measure yesterday, and the narrowest part of that alley is right when you're leaving the public garage. There's a green utility bank, and when I take the measure to the other side of the white line, we're only at 18 feet. So the alley as it sits is restrictive in itself, and that would affect this project. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, everybody. Would anybody from the applicant like to come up?
My name is Doug Stroh, 1000 Ainsworth, and I think the presentation that's been done so far has pretty much covered all the points, but I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. In my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, the height restriction is the overriding factor, and we try to make it look like a 3-story building, and that's why we set back the 4th floor. So I think it'll be a great contributor and a supporter for the fellow historic buildings downtown. So I think it's going to be well accepted down the road.
Anybody have questions?
Mr. Stroh, in the minutes that we approved today, I don't remember which particular meeting it was, but there was dialogue, I think it was with the city council, regarding the, I lost my train of thought here a second, regarding the Juliet balconies. And during a break, you consulted with Mr. Grissett, and Mr. Grissett and yourself agreed that you would have Juliet balconies on the building. So that's what I was going by. Now when I see the new renderings, the balconies are not Juliet. So there's a change from your earlier commitment to make those Juliet balconies. It's a concern that I have. How do you render the
Well,
interpretation?
there's 3 balconies on each of the second and third floor, and the 2 center ones would be Juliet's. But people really like the balconies. That's really a positive thing.
Keep your comments to yourself, please.
And, you know, when people try to rent a room, I mean, that's the first thing a lot of people ask for, including myself. So I think it really enhances the experience of the visitors. And there are other examples of balconies in town, not on Whiskey Row. And historically, there's been balconies throughout Prescott also. Currently, just on the firehouse, right behind Whiskey Row, there's balconies that overlook the sidewalk. I researched the Palace balcony, and I think that Jersey Lills opened about 21 years ago, and there's never been any issues with people throwing things over the balcony. And of course, that's a bar, and these are hotel rooms, and there'll be more of the upscale suites. And of course, it's like anything. If somebody breaks the law, they'll be handled. So I think it would be a positive thing for a lot of people.
Can I continue, please? That it's a creature comfort, but the design seems to be, in my view, obtrusive and out of character with that particular neighborhood.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No?
Mr. Stroh, I want to add on to that. When I had given my vote for the project, it was based on the Juliet balconies. While the ordinance and the guidelines don't address balconies specifically, the balconies would disrupt the continuous vertical plane required at 0 setback, which is not supported by the guidelines. As I think as a compromise, I was willing to do the Juliet, but the balconies on the front are still a concern for me as well.
Okay.
Rick Spring. The roof on this, is this retractable or is it solid and in place?
It's retractable.
How are you able to get by, it is our guidelines, it is that the 3 stories and the 0 setback for, I mean, how do you justify that?
Well, the patio roof, the structure for the fascia is the structural beam, and it wraps around the entire patio. A patio roof has to be within the setback. In other words, if you built a house and you wanted to do a covered patio, that covered patio has to be within the setback too. I left my notes back there, but it's clearly denoted in the planning and zoning manual that the roof of a covered patio defines the building facade. So technically, it meets the 0 setback.
Anyone else have a question? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like,
My name is Tim Sandifer. I'm an attorney with the Goldwater Institute, and I represent the applicant. Arizona statutes number 9-843 prohibits the city from denying an applicant a permit or license for any reason that is not specified in the law, as does the Due Process Clause of the Arizona Constitution. This right is reflected in statute 11-1602-3, which also prohibits the denial of an application for reasons not specified in the law. Section 9-843 specifically requires that all criteria for licenses or applicants for land use purposes be specified in clear and unambiguous language, and prohibits the use of subjective aesthetic criteria by those officials who might just prefer that a project look differently than it does. Nothing in the law limits the scale to 3 stories. The closest thing that the guidelines come to is on page 19 when it says that there should be a 3-story limit, but no 3-story limit has been implemented. A 48-foot limit has been implemented, but again, the application satisfies that criterion as well as all of the other criteria as specified in the Broadbent report. The city recently approved, as was mentioned by an earlier speaker, a 4-story structure in just September of 2024. So I would urge the commission to comply with state law and the state constitution and to disregard statements, even if, ironically enough, spoken by a person wearing a freedom t-shirt, that would deny both property rights and the scope of due process of law. Thank you.
Any questions? No? All right, comments?
I have a question to Ms. Mooney with Broadbent, please. Could you address the, you didn't get a chance to present your information. It was summarized by Ms. Alex. But nonetheless, what is your take on this idea of it's not you say this 4-story with balconies complies under your analysis. Could you help us understand the basis for your results and decision?
Courtney Mooney, Broadbent and Associates, Phoenix area. I was asked to review the 4-story using the Secretary of the Interior standards because the code with the City of Prescott, the design guidelines, is silent on the 4th story. And so using that, the code, the Secretary of the Interior standards states that if a 4th story is set back far enough, is not visually obtrusive, then it meets the requirements. If it's 1 story, so those are the guidelines that I used to review that, and I found that it complied. I visited the site this morning just to try to get a better sense of the overall building heights in the area, and standing in front of the building and trying to sort of imagine how far back that would be, that 4th story with the retractable awning. And I still think that it would be set back sufficiently to be not visually obtrusive.
Thank you.
In your review, did you look at our preservation master plan?
I did.
And that chapter with the 3 stories and the setbacks?
I did.
And your opinion on those were?
Again, I was asked to review the 4th story using the Secretary of the Interior standards because the code was silent on the 3 stories. Or the 4th story, I'm sorry.
Diane Travis, I'd like to point out one line that everyone keeps glancing over. This is page 13 of the ordinance. Yes, it does say 3-story buildings shall be between 40 and 48 feet. It does not mention a 4-story building. However, the very next line says the maximum height of any building shall be 48 feet. I believe that's where you get your leeway to get the 4th floor.
I agree with that. I know that, Michael King again, I know that you referenced the guidelines about the attorney that just came up and said he's looking for codified laws and the like. It is also in the ordinance. The ordinance says it shall be no more than 48 feet. Yes, it's silent on the 4 stories, but we know from our attorney, city attorney, that that's still okay to deal with that as long as it's within the ordinance of 48 feet. It did not prohibit 48 feet. 4 stories is not prohibited, but 48 feet and higher is, unless there's a waiver or something like that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Comments?
I'd like to address another comment that was brought up I passed out this handout to the my fellow commissioners in September. I was on that board. I was on that commission at the time. We voted for a 4-story hotel on the corner of Cortez and Goodwin with Juliet balconies. There may be some concern about precedent. And that is, by the way, that is in the courthouse district. Yes, it's not on Whiskey Row, but it's in the courthouse district, so it applies. We have set somewhat of a precedence, I guess you could somewhat. We've set a precedent on 4-story buildings in the courthouse district with Juliet balconies. I would like to see Juliet balconies on a modification to the existing design. The 4-story, we have the flexibility to make a decision on a 4-story hotel as long as it's within 48 feet. That is my interpretation. I just want the council and the commissioners and the rest of our audience to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, Rick Sprain, I was also on the commission then. The original design of this also had on the second floor, they wanted the restaurant, and they couldn't have any setbacks, so they came back with that. Also, the full hotel is not within the historic district. I believe it's less than half of that. So if we would have approved the 3-story, we could have had a 3-story over City Hall, but the rest of it would have been 4 stories. So I think it would have looked a little ridiculous. Yes, we could have held it that way, and yes, I guess maybe we set precedent. But yeah, the full building is not within our historic district. Any further comments on this?
I'd like to address the SHPO report. It was purely voluntary and advisory. There's nothing in the SHPO report, the State Historic Preservation Office, that holds us to any codification rules or like. One of the things that was mentioned is regarding the height of the building as it relates to the neighborhood. Well, when you see the visuals that are up there, you're not seeing the whole neighborhood. You're only seeing the adjacent buildings, which are lower. Just the neighbor next to them, you know. But the neighborhood is Whiskey Row, and there are 43 and 45-foot buildings called the Palace Hotel, Palace Bar, and the St. Michael's Hotel. So it's not really that far off the whole neighborhood. There are other buildings similar heights on Whiskey Row of the same height, not just the neighbor next door.
More? Further?
Just want to make a couple comments. Jim McCarver. In my opinion, the building, that building in the Historic Preservation District, especially those fronting the courthouse plaza, should be constructed in agreement with the guidelines that we have so that we can preserve the historic character and the integrity of the downtown area. The way I read City Ordinance 3744, which was adopted in April of 1998, the ordinance stated that properties within the Courthouse Plaza Historic Preservation District shall comply with those standards necessary, not should or could or may, shall comply with those standards. So I had 3 concerns about the building. One of the standards says there should be no setbacks past the first floor. There is a height restriction of 48 feet, which I think takes precedent over deciding how many floors you're going to squeeze in there. So I don't have an issue with 4 floors as long as it complies with the 48 feet height. But the 4th floor should have no setback, just like if St. Michael had 4 floors, it's straight up. There's no terrace, there's no awning covering it. It's a straight setback, no setback building. haven't mentioned the guidelines talk about using parapets at the top, and that they're supposed to be 4 feet in height. And I don't have any idea the parapets that are there now, how tall, how high they are. But if you had a no setback 4-story building, 48 feet, the parapets should be 4 foot in height, according to the guidelines. And I know we've somewhat set a precedent with the Juliet balconies with the other hotel that was approved. I think that in my opinion, they should be totally removed. No Juliet balconies at all. So those are my 3 concerns about the building.
All right, I hate to kick a dead horse, but I'm going to anyway. Back in 1987, when they did a building inventory of downtown and Whiskey Row, and I'm quoting from the paper regarding this building, is an integral part of Montezuma Street, Whiskey Row landscape. There are remaining remnants of the original structure. And when this first came before us, God, a year or 2 years ago, an owner prior to this was on the radio, and I listened to him. He said and there's no proof on this sheet or anywhere else, but he had stated that one of the front window facades was actually original and had been added to this building. And if you look at the building and you take in the codes and stuff that we have now, this was actually rebuilt and refurbished pretty much by the guidelines that have been set after this. And again, I'm going to go back on the preservation master plan, and I'm going to read some of this stuff again. So to maintain the historic pattern, all setbacks should be 0 for at least 50% of the first floor, which this is, and 100% of the second and third floor facade, including the roof line, this is not. The fourth floor, if it's allowed, is not allowed to have a setback, period. And it says, likewise, all setbacks should be 0 for all sides, side yards, and entire height and length of the building, again, which this is not. And the design guidelines, remember, this was set in code for the city of Prescott, so this does make it law, even though this is quite old. And on page 6 of the design guidelines, it is a crude drawing, but there is a drawing of a 4-story building along with 2- and 3-story buildings, and the 4-story says no. Pretty simple. There's also a drawing before that. Or under that, you can see what we're talking about, and I believe it's in our pamphlet. It shows a 1, 2, and 3-story building, no 4-story building in the heights. And back in the Historic Preservation District, it says 70-foot wide, 24 height limit on that, but this principle also applies to 2- and 3-story buildings. Again, it's no 4-story, and to me that means because 4 stories weren't allowed. Back on page 8.4, it says building heights may vary from 1 to 3 stories without regard of width. Again, no 4-story because it means 3 stories, period. Page 8.9, all buildings regardless of width or height are required to have a parapet on at least 4 feet above the roof. This does not have that. On 8.19, a limit of 3 stories and 48 feet in height should be implemented immediately to preserve the character of the district. When this became city code, that became the law. So it was implemented. And again, on page 8.22, adhere to the historic height ranges for 1, 2, and 3-story buildings. Again, no 4 stories because 4 stories weren't allowed. All right, anybody further discussion?
go back to the expertise in this room. With Broadbent, with Kaylee Nunez, with the city who supports the interpretation that a 4-story building is not prohibited as we go through this analysis. So I'm a layman, I'm a forester. I'm not an architect, but I know how to read, and I know how to defer my expertise to those who have it. The city supports the interpretation that we can deal with a 4-story building and we can say yes. We are not handcuffed by the words that seem to be coming forth. So I just want, I'm deferring to the architect, the archaeologist over here, Ms. Broadbent, Ms. Mooney, and also the city staff who says it's okay to have a 4-story building within the ordinances and the guidelines of this historical district. We have the flexibility if we choose to use it. We have the flexibility to add a Juliet balcony. We have the flexibility to do that. We just choose not, we may be choosing not to, but this is my position on this right now. Thank you.
I would respectfully disagree that in the preservation master plan is pretty explicit that it would be no more than 3 stories on the Whiskey Row area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The attorney, could you please restate in your words and the legal basis for this?
The objective standard is the height standard, which is explicit in the ordinance. What's not explicit in the ordinance is whether or not you can limit that height standard to 4 stories. It has consistently been the opinion of the attorney's office that you can go to 4 stories as long as you don't exceed the height limit. An example of where you've made a similar interpretation is with the hotel project over at the old City Hall that went to 4 stories, but is below that height limit.
So you're just echoing what I just said. We have the flexibility to deal with a 4-story building.
That's not what he said in the letter to his attorney last year.
Yes.
He wrote 3 stories.
Okay. No further, please, gallery. Any further comment from the commission?
My only other comment would be, think back to September of last year when you voted for a 4-story hotel. The whole project may not be in the downtown preservation district, but a majority of it was. And this commission voted unanimously for a 4-story hotel.
All right, I'm going to make a motion. We'll see how it goes. I make a motion to deny HP 25006. Do I have a second? All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. It's denied 3-2. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
So your guy is